Jared Anderson fought last night. You remember the guy he fought? What was the guy's name that he fought?
Arias. He fought Arias.
And one thing they said about Arias, trust me, I'm not going to spend time talking about Jared Anderson and Arias, right? But they said Arias' style reminded them of Mike Tyson, right? Kind of the head movement, the way he moved in and out and close distance, right? That's neither here nor there. But what it reminded me of is, and maybe you can find this on the internet, Gervonta Davis's recent tweet where, I think they asked Mike, does Gervonta remind you of yourself? And Mike said, only getting in trouble with the law. And Gervonta's like, yeah, I agree. I'm more skilled than you are. So how do you feel about that one? Do you agree with Gervonta? Because that's a very big statement.
So that's a hot topic. So for one, I felt like Tank's response, he probably took offense to it to a degree. And then responded in that manner. But I would probably have to agree with Tank Davis, right? I would probably have to agree with Tank Davis. I do think, and I'll kind of go into more detail and break it down, but I do think Tank Davis is the more skilled fighter than Mike Tyson. And what I mean by that is when Tank says, I'm the more skilled fighter, he's saying that he has more tools in his in his box.
Pause.
Meaning that he has a variety of skills that trumps what Mike Tyson had, right? And I think initially when he first said it, I kind of fell into that, how can I say, and I'm not sure, and I'm not saying everyone does this, right? But I think a lot of casuals or just fans in general, they generally, when they hear that Mike Tyson, they kind of fall into that legend effect. And what I mean by the legend effect is, I'll give you an example. When you hear names like Michael Jordan, and you're saying, okay, if someone wants to say Kobe Bryant is more skilled than Michael Jordan, most people probably disagree, only because of the name Michael Jordan and how much of a legend he is, right? They kind of oversaturate their abilities, right? They were great, but they kind of oversaturated all these other areas, right?
More skill doesn't mean better, essentially.
Exactly. You can be the better fighter, you could be the more successful fighter, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're more skilled. I'll give you a perfect example. It's kind of like Kyrie Irving, right? He's probably arguably one of the most skilled player in NBA history, right? Probably top 3 hands down. But is he a top 3 best player of all time? Absolutely not. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't say that he is. No.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts? Who do you feel like was the more skilled fighter?
Well, first things first, I do agree with you. I do think Tank took offense to it, but I think if he was to really take a step back and just listen and just look at it, I don't think they fight alike. The only thing that's really similar is they knock people out, right? But no, I don't think they fight alike. But I actually have to lean with Tyson on this one. I don't think Tank is the more skilled fighter. As much as I like Tank as a fighter, I'm gonna have to go with Mike Tyson on this one. Yeah. It's just some of the things that he does, like not necessarily being Mike Tyson, right? Because Mike Tyson probably fumbled his career, right? But based on his skill, he had the skill to probably be one of the greatest of all time. I'm not saying he isn't, but I think his career generally didn't pan out the way it should have. It's probably reminiscent of like a Shaq, right? That run you had might be unparalleled, but a lot of people feel like you didn't accomplish what you should have accomplished if you stayed focused and disciplined, right?
Absolutely.
But to the things that I like about Mike Tyson, of course, he had amazing head movement. I think in boxing history, he's probably one of the best people at actually closing the distance, and like he'll be so far away from his opponent. Next thing you know, he's in there because his movement was so good. So excellent at closing the defense. He oftentimes fought guys who were bigger than him.
Right.
Now, guys didn't really charge at Mike often. Some people did, and most of them ended on the canvas, but his power was so scary, right? Even if he's not the hardest hitter in boxing history, he's probably the most feared hitter, like in contrast to the opponents that he fought, right? His opponents came in fair in his power, probably more than any other boxer's opponents came in fair in their power. So just that. But even with that, he wasn't just wild and reckless. He had great placement on his punches. Like I said, oftentimes he fought guys that were bigger than him, and he was able, set him up, go to the body, go to the head. You know what I'm saying? So good punches. He doubled up his punches at times. So it wasn't just Deontay Wilder, right? Left, right. You know what I'm saying? There was a lot more to it. His movement, He had some good L steps to spin around on you. I think his defense was pretty solid. You know, he wasn't just getting punished, you know, at his peak. We want to use Mike at his peak. Yeah, we don't want to use
before he went to jail.
post prison Mike. Yeah.
Yeah, before he went to prison. Yeah.
Yeah. So and then, like I said, even like just the way he threw his body punches, like, you know, I know Customato taught him how to throw those body punches, but throw the body punch, but keep your head away from getting hit, because a lot of times he fought guys with longer reaches. So I just think like Mike displayed so much skill. There's a lot more things he did, but I don't want to like keep ranting without giving you a chance. So like when you favor Gervonta, what is it that makes you favor Gervonta actually?
So when I think of Gervonta, right, and I think sometimes it can be unfair, right? Comparing like heavyweights to the lower weight classes, right? Because of the opponents. Typically with heavyweight classes, there's less punches being thrown. It usually ends in a knockout. Whereas in the low weight classes, there's a lot more punches being thrown. There's a lot more maneuvering. So they have that advantage because they're lighter, right? And they're shorter, just physics. So I would say in terms of from Gervonta Tank Davis standpoint, Gervonta was a better fighter fighting on the back foot, right? Like he wasn't always just this pressure fighter. He's like a puncher boxer where he moves forward when he has to and he moves backward when he has to. And we've seen him fighting on the back foot. He's able to throw punches, move, duck, right? He's a better defensive fighter against volume punchers, right? We've seen Tank Davis, right, take punches where he gets hit against Leo Santa Cruz, but it's because he's allowing himself to get hit once he feels the opponent's power, right? It's a strategy move, right? And even then, he knows what punches to kind of take and what punches to kind of counter, right? And this goes into his counter punching ability, which is a way better counter puncher than Mike Tyson was, right? Because of his elusiveness, right? Ducking. And when he counters, sometimes Tank Davis counters in two ways, right? He'll counter with his head going in and he'll counter using the shoulder roll, right? Which is another technique that he kind of employs, right? Another method that he kind of uses to counter punch is what Shakur Stevenson was doing yesterday, right? He'll use his lead hand, right, for timing purposes, right? He'll touch that the opponent could try to time him, and then he'll kind of either slip, roll, and then just throw uppercut, or he'll go to the body, right? And I've just seen Tank Davis just throw a variety of punches. Like he'll throw punches, he'll throw leaping, right, crosses, right, leaping left hooks that Mike Tyson used to do too. He used to do the leaping hooks. But Mike Tyson, I would say Mike Tyson was exceptional when he came into the Dempsey row, right? Or the movement and then shifting his body. That is what Mike Tyson has done exceptional, which I think is more. But just that one area doesn't necessarily make you the more skilled fighter. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Tank Davis just lays trap better, right? But that's more of an IQ thing. I just think that he adjusts his placement range by extending that jab going again. It's a good technique that he uses. I just think that he has more tools in his box than Mike Tyson has had, right? And the reason for that is because Mike Tyson always had the fucking right left hand of God to kind of bail him out a lot of the times. You get what I mean? When you have more power, you're less likely to kind of work in areas that you need to, you know, in the heavyweight division. Whereas in the lower weight class division, yeah, Tank Davis, you can have more power, but sometimes you got to work on. That's why I think Tank Davis is very underrated, because even with his power, he works on so many other areas. You get what I mean? And he's not just a headhunter. He'll attack the body. You know what I mean? And I think he attacks the body way more than Mike Tyson did. You get what I mean? So that's just my perspective as to why I believe Tank Davis is just a more skilled fighter. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say it's like by far or, you know, but I would say overall, I think he just has more skills. Right, if we laid it down, like being a jack of all trades, he may have like 10, you know, tools in his box, whereas Mike Tyson may have like 7. You get what I mean?
So real quick, just to touch on a couple of the points that you made. I think Mike was an amazing body puncher, but that's not really what I want to hone in on. I think the counter punching, I'm not sure I agree, but I'm going to tell you why, right? I do think Gervonta is better at laying traps, right? But what Mike did, and like it's part of the stigma, right? People were scared, but because he closed that distance, he got people to panic because they're like, "Oh, Mike is too close." And then sometimes, I think sometimes they start wildly throwing, and he would counter a lot of people and knock them out from that position. So it wasn't necessarily a trap that he laid. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah, it was just like he was
once he
countering.
closed that distance, they were like, oh, they're so frantic, they don't know what to do. They start throwing, and Mike was just good at being very elusive and catching a lot of knockouts that way. I would still consider that counter punching. You know what I'm saying? It's not necessarily a trap, but what you've done have invoked the reaction that you then countered and knocked a lot of guys out in that stance, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, I definitely get what you mean. Like because Mike Tyson has had moments where by nature, because of his head movements to close the distance, to dodge punches, he'll throw. So that can be considered counter punching, right? The counter punching I'm referring to when it comes to Tank Davis. Tank Davis has done that. But when we're talking about, and you mentioned this is like just laying the traps.
Yeah.
Tank Davis counter punches in a variety of different ways. He's just not coming to headhunt. Sometimes he'll counter punch by going to the body and then coming under and then throwing an overhand right. And also, like, for instance, like the pull counter punch that Floyd Mayweather has done. Mike Tyson wasn't doing that. So what I'm saying is when he's the better counter punches, he's done it in more ways in countering punches than Mike Tyson, which is why I believe he's clearly the better counter puncher. You know what I mean?
And then, but what about movement? Because I think Mike's movement as a heavyweight, the dude moves like a gazelle. You know what I'm saying?
I would say Mike's footwork was exceptional. I would probably, that might be the only area I can probably concede to, right? But I don't want to kind of get into that, like,
right. We can't
that area because we've never seen it from a heavyweight. We boost it, whereas when we see low weight classes, right, like other people kind of doing it, it's not as impressive because they're lighter. You get what I mean? So it's kind of like a heavyweight bias effect because we haven't seen so many heavyweights do it. It's more impressive because of that weight. But when we see someone smaller in stature, when they do it, it's not as impressive. You get what I mean? So it's kind of like, where do we draw that line?
Yeah, I get what you mean, but I think a heavyweight in that regard, we like Fury, right? The way Fury's elusive, because you don't expect that a lot from heavyweights. But I think Mike, just in general, I think his footwork is good no matter what his weight. Just the way he moves in general, I think his footwork is just impeccable.
Right, and I agree with you, right? But let's say Mike Tyson now was a 135 pounder. Would people be saying, "Oh, his footwork is phenomenal"?
I think they would, because like some people like Pitbull Cruz, right? He did a couple things that resemble Mike a little bit. They weren't really like honed like Mike, but they resembled it a little bit, and that's why they started calling like Mexican Mike Tyson and stuff like that, because it was impressive. You know what I'm saying? Because they are good moves. I just don't think he did them as good as Mike. So let's say if Mike was 135, right, and he still moved that good, I think people were like, whoa, he has exceptional footwork.
So would you consider Mike Tyson footwork to be better than everyone at 135? Would you say that?
Everyone?
Absolutely not.
Not Vasily Lomachenko.
And I don't think no one really like praises people's footwork at 135. You get what I mean?
Lomachenko. Mike Tyson. They praise Lomachenko's footwork.
Yeah, Lomachenko's definitely outlier. His is not even close. But you know what's crazy? If you look at Mike Tyson's footwork versus Lomachenko's, it's more apparent Mike Tyson's footwork versus Lomachenko. Lomachenko's footwork is more subtle. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you look at Lomachenko's, like if you ask a casual fan, they'll probably say Mike Tyson's footwork is better than Lomachenko. You get what I mean? Because Mike Tyson just considered a legend and he just seemed more apparent. Of course, we're not going to consider that to be the case. We won't agree that. But I get it though. But the Mike Tyson's footwork, I think it was just really good, even for his size.
Yeah.
I just don't know if I'm in my mind, if I'm boosting it because of him being at that size. You get what I mean? Like, because then I see a lot of other, like Devin Haney's footwork. He got decent footwork. Like these boxers at the low weight class, they have decent footwork, right? Even them moving, Bud Crawford, like it's just so subtle that we just don't make a big deal out of it. But I think because of Mike Tyson's style, it just seems so glaring in that movement for him to and then move to the side and throw the hook to the body. It just seems so apparent that we kind of gotta, like throw it out there. You get what I mean? Like it's always there. It's like a shiny new car versus a Nissan that can do the same thing. It just this one just seems more shiny.
Yeah.
But that's probably the one area I'll probably concede to. If
So
I'm being
I get what you mean, and actually on this, I would love to actually hear from some of our viewers, some of our subscribers. Of course, we are a growing channel, so we appreciate all the engagement in the comments. So definitely leave a comment on what do you think, who do you
right.
think is more skilled? Tell us why. And another question I want to throw out there to a lot of our viewers is just when it comes to the realm of engagement, do you guys think we should start an Instagram so we can deepen these conversations and be able to converse with you guys there? Currently, I think the only other social media platform we have right now is TikTok.
TikTok.
Do you guys think maybe an Instagram or a Twitter? But so definitely drop that in a comment. Let us know how we can engage better because we want to continue to grow and just further these conversations here.
Right.